if these walls could talk.
I think there's what's dynamic about it is everyone has a Regency Towers story, whether they've lived here or are part of the Las Vegas community.
The American dream, and my family really embodied the American dream, especially retiring here and living on top of the original skyscraper of Las Vegas.
The best thing about living here, I think, has been looking out the window and seeing that incredible view.
Well, the charm of Regency Towers was its mystery. The mystery was there were incredible icons of Las Vegas that were living here or that had places here that they came to on occasion.
Las Vegas has been built by vision and visionaries. No better example of this were the Regency Towers, which blossomed into existence in 1974 behind the gates of the iconic Las Vegas Country Club. Some 5 decades later, the mystique of the Regency Towers remains, evolved from a glorious, compelling, and remarkable history.
Well, I remember watching it being built. I was a student at UNLV and I lived in the Huntridge neighborhood. And so watching this high-rise go up, knowing that it wasn't a hotel, it was an amazing thing to watch. And I imagined what kind of person would actually think of building a high-rise like this in the middle of a community where there was so much vacant land. It was truly a one-of-a-kind project and wonderful to watch it being built.
The who Marion wondered about was developer Paul R. Channon, president of Channon Development Company, a subsidiary of Wonderworld, parent company of the popular Las Vegas department stores. Channon, along with Vice President Herb Kaufman and architects Rissman Associates, built Regency Towers and changed the Vegas skyline forever.
When Regency Tower was built in Las Vegas, it was one of a kind. And it took Las Vegas all of a sudden from a very, very horizontal place to a beautiful vertical place.
Homer A. Rissman was a top architect and the designer behind Circus and other notable Las Vegas projects. To make the project feasible, Channon secured financing of $11,360,000 from Heitman Mortgage Company. The deal was said to be the largest financing commitment for a residential project in Nevada history at the time. However, Channon's company ran into financial difficulties. Enter Paradise Development and legendary developer Erwin Molaski.
Well, I was in my dad's office and he was concluding a deal with the developer of this, or the insurance company that was financing it, and at the same time he was pre-buying the penthouse unit. Dad was a very focused person. He was, on the one hand, he could take big risks, and on the other hand, he could analyze things down to the most minute detail.
The risk that Molaski and Paradise Development President Herb Tobman took by purchasing Regency Towers was mitigated by very favorable loan terms from Aetna Insurance during a time when interest rates were soaring. Not only did Molaski make the purchase, his influence attracted a who's who of Las Vegas to call the towers home. In the beginning, the 1, 2, or 3 bedroom units ranged from $50,000 to $91,000.
I think that one of the things that made Regency Towers successful, because when it was first developed and it was first planned, it wasn't successful. It wasn't selling units. But then when you had Erwin Molaski actually living in the building that he was developing, when you had Hank and Barbara Greenspun living in this building, that sent a message to their peers that said, this is the place, this is the address that you want to call home.
My father loved it. And what he loved about it is he knew so many of the people who had moved in there. And he loved to run. So instead of running around the block and everything that he used to do when he lived on the ground, he would run up and down the 27 flights of stairs every single morning.
A lot of folks have been here a long time. They've raised families at Regency Towers. They have multiple generations living within Regency Towers. So parents and children have moved in. So it's really become a place to call home for a lot of people.
Regency Towers quickly became the place to live and the place to be. Notables who lived in or spent considerable time there included Mo Dalitz, Debbie Reynolds, LaToya Jackson, Michael Jackson, George Carlin, Kurt Kerkorian, Sheriff John Moran, Charlotte Hill, Miriam Borders, and Tony Spilatro, plus many other notable Las Vegans from many different backgrounds.
When I think about Regency Towers, I think about all the amazing people that have lived here. And one time I came down the elevator with George Carlin, and I had just written something that he was not happy about, and I got a very cold shoulder, couldn't wait for the ride to end.
My parents loved it, and at night all the lights would twinkle. But the really cool thing I think about that apartment was not just the way the beautiful marbles and the glass and the mirrors. I mean, it was decked out. But the cool thing was our neighbors. We found out that we were living with like the biggest families of Las Vegas. We had the Moloskis to our left, the Greenspuns to our right, the McDonald's on the other side. I mean, we felt we were like the Beverly Hillbillies of the building. It was really fun.
To me, Regency Towers is more than just another building, another condo community, or really just another piece of real estate. To me, it's a lot of old Vegas history and charm. There's a lot of mystique behind it. And it's really something truly special.
A huge part of that mystique is the relationship between the Las Vegas Country Club and Regency Towers. The club was the first truly private country club in Las Vegas, and many members were also Regency Towers residents. And Molaski and Dalitz, along with Allard Rohn and Merv Adelson, were part of the club's ownership. The view of the course was, and still is, always front and center.
Clearly, there was a relationship between the Las Vegas Country Club and Regency Towers. One, Regency Towers was in the middle of the Las Vegas Country Club. You couldn't miss it, but it had common ownership.
I don't know that Regency Towers is an example of their influence, but it certainly couldn't have happened without their influence. The Regency Towers would never have been built in any other location in the city or in the heart of Las Vegas if it weren't for the country club. So the country club, the high-end homes that were then going to be built on the country club, they added to that ambiance of exclusivity, that ambiance of reaching the heights and the pinnacle of citizenship and residencyship.
In the late 70s and early 80s, Mob CC became a popular nickname for the Las Vegas Country Club. Certain alleged mafia members belonged to the club, and their shadows also spread to Regency Towers.
Of course, one of the really neat things about Regency Towers is the history, and it kind of, goes into the mob culture a little bit. I mean, everyone's seen Casino and the famous scene, that probably took place like right over there. So, I mean, it's kind of neat when you walk around, you kind of feel the old-time Vegas thrill.
There's the stories of, the old mob days, everyone knows them, and who lived here, when they lived here, how they handled when there was any evidence of anyone coming in, secret passages, secret escape routes. So there's a multitude of stories that have surrounded Regency Towers as back in the day.
Again, if only the Regency Towers walls could talk, oh, the stories that would be told. Like a fine wine or invaluable antique, Regency Towers continues to be appreciated, and a future built on a glorious history is eagerly anticipated by a new generation of owners and families.
When you have an opportunity to cross those gates and you drive through and there's the maturity of the trees and the grass and the different product choices that are offered here, you don't feel like you're part of Vegas, but it captures a feeling of what old Vegas was.
Investments in renovations and enhancements continue to be made by the newest generation to keep Regency Towers modern and relevant. The history, present, and future all add up to make the 50th Golden Jubilee magical.
When I watch people like my parents move in there, I can't call it downsizing. That would be unfair. It certainly was downsizing maybe in terms of square footage. It wasn't downsizing from a financial standpoint, but the Jeffersons called it moving on up. They actually moved on up. And it just proved the case long before we had all these condominium towers. Years, decades. It just proved that Las Vegas could handle that. Certainly, and we proved that we can.
I think the most interesting thing to me about Regency Towers has been the people we've met here. the incredible history of the building. It just never gets old. You see weather moving in, you meet somebody in the elevator and triggers some great memories. It's been an incredible experience to live here. I walked right into a great story. The lobby was raucous. There was a whole bunch of people there. It was almost like there was a party, and it was like gathered around somebody. And as I had walked in, I heard this huge roar, and I got up and close, and I asked somebody what's going on, and they said that Debbie Reynolds had just won a bet by proving she could do the splits at 70-some years old, and there she was still on the floor.
So one of the coolest memories I think I have is my dad was chairman of the board at the time, and Michael Jackson ended up being our neighbor for about a week. And I, at the time, was writing for the New York Post. So I'm thinking, I need to get an interview with him. Hey, Michael, my mom's a great cook. We're right across the hall. Let's make you dinner, and you can tell me your story, and I'll get it verbatim for the New York Post. The next day, Michael Jackson left. So I guess he was a little worried there was a pesky reporter across the way.
It's dynamic. I said no two units are alike in here. Out of 200 plus units, no two units are alike. Each unit has a story. I always say that Regency Towers is an emotional buy because of that. Someone walks in, they love the unit, they love the floor height, they love the location, they love the view. It really comes down to an emotional buy for a lot of people. But generally, this is where they want to be.
The first hole was a par 5 that ended, the green was right in the shadow, if you will, of the Regency Tower. And I remember playing there, many times with my friend John Moran. And invariably, when we got to the green, hopefully I was closer to the hole than he was, you'd look up, about midway up that building, and there's the sheriff at the time, who was John's dad. He would always come out on the balcony, and he'd wave to us while he and his wife had a cup of coffee or whatever they were doing up there. It was kind of nice.
First thing that comes to my mind with Mo Dalitz is the Las Vegas Country Club. Not for the reasons that you might think. It's not because he was a major investor and major developer of the country club, which he was, but it was the country club became the symbol of how mob-oriented people who, from wherever they came from, if it was Kansas City, if it was Chicago, they were still lower class citizens in those locations. They were looked down upon because they were mobsters, gangsters, illegals. They would never have been able to belong to the premier country clubs in those communities. But here, they created a new life, a new personality, they were welcomed here, and they could live the life of prominent citizen, not just gangster. And the country club was the epitome of that.
My dad and Susan Molaski lived here from the very beginning. They raised the Fry boys, my stepbrothers. And I remember in their unit, my dad had, and I don't think many people had that at this time, split screens, about 3 or 4 small televisions next to each other, where you could get all the different football games and all the different channels. We would hang out in the family room and watch games.